Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 724 for the 21st of August 2022. Richard Saunders coming to you from Sydney, Australia, and my voice is a little stretched, a little strained, a little rough, because all of yesterday I was with Ian Bryce from the Australian Skeptics and Maynard. We were performing the Mystery Investigators Science Show for the Parramatta City Council, the University of Western Sydney, and the Powerhouse Museum. What a wonderful day it was, bending spoons, doing water divining, running around, and having a lot of science fun. So, coming up at the top of the show, Maynard's report about the whole day. And a big thank you to everybody who came along to see our show yesterday in Parramatta. How many spoons did we bend? I can't imagine. We gave away lots of 10-sided dice, which everybody loved and generally had a lot of fun. Following that, it's the report I promised for last week about the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival held here in Sydney some months ago. As I write in the article, what is the sweep of time? 20 years of visiting this festival of nonsense taught me. Then we have the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham this week. Tim looks at micronations, those tiny little nations and principalities that pop up from time to time. Then to round off the show, it's the Trove segment. This week we look at the strange Min light of outback Queensland, the mysterious hovering light that has been seen on and off for decades or even for centuries. And to round off the show, another poem by our late great mate Jim Wilshire, and this week's poem is all about the Min light. And speaking of Jim Wilshire's poems, I've decided to put on YouTube most of the videos that Jim and I shot some 15, 16 years ago for a DVD we made at the time. And I sort of figure, well, why not? Let everybody now around the world enjoy Jim's poetry. And if you go to the skepticzone.tv and scroll down this week's show notes, on the right-hand side, you'll see a little link, a little picture of Jim, and a link to all Jim's poems. So you can see Jim reading out the poems in person. Also, I will mention that this Thursday night here in Sydney, at Sydney Skeptics in the pub, our special guest is none other than Skeptic Zone reporter Adrian Hill, who's going to be talking about ghosts. For more information, check AUST, AUST Skeptics Meetup. And no matter where you are around the world, you can join in and hear Adrian Hill talk about ghosts. And speaking of skeptics in the pub, the Gold Coast Skeptics. Our friends at the Gold Coast Skeptics are also having a Skeptics in the pub, and this will be Tuesday. This will be Tuesday this week, Tuesday the 23rd of August, from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. And their guest will be Associate Professor Tim Nelson, Griffith University, talking about how we can create a just transition to renewable energy in Australia. Find out more by visiting gsskeptics.com. Now, just thinking about yesterday, as you'll hear, Maynard interviews lots of people who were there. Isn't science wonderful? Isn't it incredibly interesting? We can learn about space, place, interconnections, change, environment, sustainability, scale. I think it's time for me to run downstairs and have some nice, yummy spices, which I love. While I do that and think about science, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Well, it's Science Week, and today's in fact Science Day for the big crew of the Skeptic Zone. We are travelling to Parramatta, which is there. It's not moving. It's not a moving target. We feel we can make it to Parramatta, and there's going to be children. Okay, but there is an upside to the day in that it will be a family day. But wait, there still is an upside to the day in that there'll be lots of mucking around with science. We're making a mess, and I may even meet Paul McCartney as part of the gluten-free, plant-based band that's playing there today. I'm looking forward to introducing them. But the man who's driving us now in the Skeptic Zone Mystery Mobile, Richard Saunders.
Maynard, it's been a while since we've been in the Skeptic Zone Mystery Mobile. Today it's sort of the Mystery Investigators Mystery Mobile, because we're going to be, with our friend Ian Bryce, we're going to be performing water divining tests, and we're going to be performing. Hang on a second, where am I?
Look, look, that's right. This is where they've redeveloped an area we're driving through here. One of those
Where am I going, mate?
roads, New South Wales. You want to go to Balmain, don't you?
Yeah.
Hang on, we'll have to look. We've just got to do a bit of stuff with Hawking radiation. We're back in a minute.
They've completely.
Okay, we finally got it worked out here. We had to do some quick calculations regarding the Hawking radiation in the Balmain interchange, and it is a bit of a mess here. It does look a bit like a black hole.
It is a black hole. It's completely changed the construction work. Anyway, as I was saying, we're going to be doing all sorts of science, fun and games with the public today at Parramatta. The Parramatta Council having a science day, and we've been booked to perform. So I've got lots of spoons to bend. As I said before, we'll be doing water divining test, optical illusions, and lots of science goodies, including the power balance test.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. Now, what's that called? It's a field where you push arms down that, but it's actually got a name to it.
Oh, it's called applied kinesiology.
That's it. Applied kinesiology.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a shonky thing, so we'll be teaching people the tricks behind it and how not to get fooled.
And we'll also be discovering and asking the question, what is science to you? What do you think science is? For me, science is getting up in the morning, turning stuff on and having it work. So it's not a very high bar it has to clear with me. But for some people, it's a true mystery. Right. Now, we're going to pick up Ian Bryce. I believe we're straight to the Courthouse Hotel where he has been since 9 o'clock last night, studying.
Studying.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay. Well, here we are at Parramatta Square right now, where it all will be happening for the Family Science Day. Richard's got his Mystery Investigator's coat on.
Yes.
I've got my blue as a goose jacket on.
And your shoes, my goodness me.
They're pretty good, hey?
They're very good. And it's just before the day started, so that we've got various science exhibits setting up here in the square. It looks like it's going to be a nice day, and we're going to be roving entertainers, Maynard, doing our water divining and bending spoons.
Spoon bending. And you'll hear a band in the background now. That's the Vegetable Plot Band. They're playing a couple of sets today. I'll be introducing them, as well as some street science, which is going to go on stage, and some dancing as well. It's going to be happening on stage. And also Lost Children. Lost Children. I was lost in the Newcastle West Shopping Centre sometime during the 70s, and that was the end of me, really. But I won't tell them that story. And over here we've got the physics education. That's physics with an F, which means it's fun. And who have we got here? Maynard here from the Skeptic Zone podcast.
Hey, Maynard. How you doing, mate? It's Ben.
Hey, Ben. What are you up to today? You're all set up here. What are you hoping to teach kids? Oh, hang on. What I'm asking everybody is, what does science mean to you, by the way, today? It's a personal thing.
Yeah. Sure, it's exploring the world and seeing how it works.
Okay. Have you got a favourite branch of science you like? I guess it's physics.
How could you tell?
I'm just taking a guess. But there's lots of branches of that. There's quantum physics, in which people come from America and stand on stage and say stuff I have no idea what they're on about. That was Green. What's his name? That Green. When he came out here. But there's actually physics is Newton, where you go bang, bang, things move around in heat.
Yeah, and a lot of this is actually Newtonian. We're having kids play with science toys. They're going to have a bit of a blast, so it's really here for all different ages. And I'm going to hang out and do some liquid nitrogen experiments too.
Get out! And the kids, and how close? Oh, but that's scary stuff.
It is. It's cold, but you know what? Your tea or your hot coffee is actually more dangerous because it'll touch you and it'll burn you. Liquid nitrogen will boil over the top of you and it will barely touch you.
Ah, right. It's only if you put your hand on it for a while and your skin sticks to it.
Yeah, then you learn about cold.
Yeah, very quickly there. And who have we got over here? Hello.
I'm Lottie.
Hello. And what's your favourite? I guess you're a physics fan too.
I definitely am, but my favourite branch in science is neuroscience, brains.
Oh,
That's
wow.
my favourite type. No, I think that brains are so different compared to hearts. I mean, I could also be wrong, but I think there's more difference between brains between people. So I reckon neurosurgeons are the ones who might rule the hospital.
But what's going to be your favourite thing you're going to play with the kids today?
Oh, I think it's going to be the balancing birds. I think kids always love the balancing birds, and you can get them to rest it on their nose, and they love it. And I love doing it on my finger and just showing them all the things you can balance the birds on. So I think I'm super excited for that one.
What is science to you too, by the way? I didn't ask.
Science to me is being curious and also not being afraid of failure. I think that growing up, I just was always so curious about everything. So it's just a safe place for everybody. Anybody could do science, and failure isn't something that's looked down upon in science because it's a way to move forward. So it's exciting.
Thank you. Look, as I'm hosting here, I see there's a very large, what I first thought was a solar canoe, but I thought, no, it's actually a solar-powered car, which has been in some sort of contest by the look of it. Who have we got here?
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan. I'm from the Western Sydney Solar Team. And so here we have Unlimited 3.0, the car we built for 2019 for the World Solar Challenge.
And how'd you go?
This car unfortunately didn't finish like many on that race because of wild weather.
Oh, right. So it was flooded out, or what happened?
100 kilometre an hour crosswinds.
Right. Okay. Yes. Look, well, first thing I noticed is I was listening about photoelectric cells on regular cars, and they were putting them onto a Volkswagen Golf, which hasn't got a completely flat roof, which is kind of what you've had, and they lost about 30% efficiency initially by doing that. Is that part of the problem, in that a curved roof can be a problem for solar cells?
Yeah, well, if you're curving away from where the sun's pointing, obviously you're going to get less power. But we specifically design ours to maximise the sun throughout the day.
Oh, okay. What by where you drive, or by the way the cells are designed?
Just the shape of the car. We aim to have as flat of a surface as we can.
Wow. So did anyone actually finish it with 100 kilometres crosswinds? Who won it?
The Belgian team Agoria won that event.
Well, you don't get many 100-kilometre wins in Belgium.
Well, not in Belgium, but this was through the middle of Australia, where you do tend to get some.
I was going to say, they wouldn't have thought of that, I would have thought,
Yeah. So there were quite a few teams that had unfortunate accidents with the wind, and a couple of teams caught fire, so all in all, we didn't do too bad.
Yes, well, I think fire would be kind of worse than getting blown off the road there. Well, look, congratulations, and when will the new one be on the road, the new prototype you're working on?
Well, the next event's in October 2023, so hopefully somewhat before then.
Good luck. I hope you don't get the crosswinds, or the wind is in the right direction.
Yeah, we'll hope for the best.
Thank you very much. Look, I'm here with the people from Street Science, who are all the way from Sciencey Bris Vegas.
Yeah, mate, we jumped on a plane yesterday, headed down to Sydney Science Festival, mate. It's pretty exciting. Yeah. There's a band on the stage at the moment, warming
the vegetable plot. They are warming up a storm.
They definitely are, mate. There's kids dancing, there's parents bopping, there's all sorts cheering, mate. So we're up next, so really looking forward to the 11 o'clock for sure.
Yeah, right. Now you're going to get the kids on stage. What are you going to make them do on stage? You're going to embarrass them so that it's a lifelong experience they'll remember in a kind of a goodish way?
Oh, we might. There's some embarrassing parts, but hey, they'll leave that stage with a huge smile on their face, so that's what we're all about.
I've been asking everybody, what does science mean to you? Yeah, because it's Science Week.
Yeah, it's a good question. Science to me, I reckon science is really important, because when we learn science, we learn about the world. We learn about how stuff works and why things happen. So it's one of those things that, every single person can relate to, whether they're 5 years old or 85 years old. We want to be learning about the world around us all the time, so science is pretty bloody important.
Right. What science mean to you? I guess with what you do, you'd be a physics person because it's all bangs flashy. Yeah.
Well, I'm actually a biologist by trade, but hey,
one of those.
Yes, but hey.
What's biology done for us lately?
Biology for us lately? Well, what hasn't it done?
It's an ongoing thing. And it's probably the thing that people tend to overlook because it can be less glamorous unless it's, pharmacy or you're solving a plague or something.
Yeah, no, that is very true. But I think biology has its part in chemistry as well. So, it goes through all of the different...
Including physics. You fall down in physics, there's biology involved there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, but with Street Science, we will get to do a bit of chemistry and physics as well. So, we get the best of all the worlds of science. So,
yeah, and what does science mean to you, you big biology fan, you?
Well, science to me, like Steve said, science is all around us, but science is also the answer to a lot of our problems that we have. If there's an issue in the world, then we're looking to science to try and fix that.
Well, a lot of people will be asking why after you make a mess on stage there, so good luck with that.
Good on you, mate.
Well, I'm here. Oh, as you can hear, the kids are going absolutely nuts in the background for Street Science that is on stage. But just to the side of Street Science, Richard Saunders has a whole bunch of containers, some water. But he does have you've got a damn good sign there, Richard.
Mr. Investigator, we've done about what's going on over there. About 5 shows so far, and it's only just over an hour. We're going to do a couple more, then have a little break. But we've had lots of people bending spoons and water divining and looking at these optical illusions over there.
Because as I know, kids ask the darnest questions, although they don't usually say darnest. But any wacky questions come your way yet? Oh, why do you do that, Mr. Gibby?
Yeah. The question I'm getting a lot today is, how did you bend the spoon?
Yeah, everyone wants to know, and it's like no one wants to be happy with a magic trick anymore. Everyone's got to know how it's done, or else it's.
Yeah, but now we're having a great day, and we've got many more shows to do.
And we're backed up by the freshest, filthiest, runciest band in town. Everybody clap your hands. Woo-hoo. And give us a beat.
Well, I'm here in I like to call it the Bush Science tent. We've got the Bat Science tent on the other side, and we've got the Bush Science tent here. Who have we got here?
Hi, I'm Lisa Kalaris.
Hello, Lisa. And did you get a degree in Bush Science?
My degree's in environmental science.
Oh, well, you'd know all about what's going on in the Parramatta area. What's the biggest problem we have with any sort of introduced species, both living and plants?
I would say that probably people dumping their their garden waste into our native areas is probably definitely an issue that we need to address.
And it's kind of hard to stop unless you put up a lot of cameras and that, and you've got such a large area to cover. What sort of thing would be the most dangerous or toxic thing they could dump?
Oh, well, we get lots of non-plant material, such as
asbestos.
It's a bad one. But yeah, probably the lawnmower clippings and the cut garden waste that people have from their gardens. Lots of introduced species get into our bushlands that way.
All right. And I've been asking people what is science to them? What is science for you, being an ecologist?
Science for me helps me look at the world with fresh eyes. Everything you learn, it helps you look at the world in a different way and helps you understand what's happening around you.
And if people want to see what you guys are up to online with Parramatta Bush Care, where can they go to have a look?
Jump on our website, the Google Bush Care on the council website, and you'll find out all the information there, and you can even join one of our groups.
It's the end of a wild day for science here at Parramatta Square, where it's been the Family Science Day. Richard Saunders has been out there at the coal face of science, poking people with investigation.
I think I need to buy some more spoons.
Well, yeah, how many spoons did you did spoon bending aplenty today?
I can't believe how many spoons we bent today. It was ridiculous, but we had about 15 shows, Ian, in a row, something like that, over the course of the day.
10, like 8, I think.
8? No.
Yes.
No, you did more. You did at least 10 that I saw.
At least 10, all right. Thank you. We'll compromise.
But my favourite was one kid who demanded he get the spoon off me, the brick and end of the spoon, and he had a look at that and asked me what its composition was, and did it have actinium in it or something? And I said, it's normal stainless steel. It's got iron and nickel and chromium in it. And he said, he looked at the broken part. He said, can I have the other half as well? So I gave him that. So and I think we have a budding scientist or skeptic there. So he was my favourite.
That was fun. Yeah.
Yes, I think, what do they call that? The natural sciences? Or what do they call it when you build from the earth? Yeah, that stuff. You've got a budding one of them. I can't remember a thing. I've been yelling all day over drums.
Me too. It's been very loud today, but a great success, I think.
No, but...
Hi there, I'm Abhijit and I host the Rationable podcast on BeRationable.com. Every couple of weeks, I science the hell out of alternative medicines, health and nutrition fads, social media forwards, science news, and lots more. Of course, you can find all of my articles, podcast episodes, and lots more on www.berationable.com. See you there, and until then, always be rationable.
Now, here's an item I wrote for the latest issue of the Skeptic magazine, which came out in June this year. 20 years of predictable surprises. Richard Saunders reports on the ongoing festival of psychics and pseudoscience. And yes, oh yes, this refers to one of my favourite topics, of course, mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, wallet, as we love to call it. In late May of 2022, longtime skeptical supporter Darryl Cahoon and I ventured once more unto the breach. That is, the Festival of Mind, Body, Spirit at Sydney's International Convention Centre at Darling Harbour. After attending this event, normally held every 6 months when COVID does not shut it down, for the last 20 years, what insights has the sweep of time given me of this new age event that attracts thousands? To list but a few. Point. Consistently, about 80% of those attending are female. I make no comment about this apart from it being an observable fact. Point. About 10% of the stalls and stands are for legitimate products and services. For example, various charities, food merchants, support groups. This year there was one for breast cancer survivors. Jewellery, bathing products, and so on. Point. The psychic reading room has been a consistent feature. This year, a 30-minute reading with the psychic of your choice cost around $55. Point. What we could call unproven services or devices come and go over the years. This includes various machines that claim to heal with energy or frequencies. They normally have a 3 or 4 year run, then somehow vanish, only to be replaced by yet another device that claims to do more or less the same thing. Point. The ubiquitous use of the words quantum, energy, frequencies, vibrations, healing, and wellness. Point. The occasional appearance of such outfits as the Church of Scientology, the Catholic Church, and other religions or cults. This year I was surprised to see a stand from the Orange People, or the Rajneesh, a cult from the 1970s and 80s. Point. Health products and services make up the majority of stalls, whether they are legitimate, unproven, or outright shonky. Point. Health products and services make up the majority of stalls, whether they are legitimate, unproven, or outright shonky. Point. The Aura camera seems to be the exact same device used for decades. That is a large box device on a stand. By now, there can be no doubt that it is a nonsense, and I wonder if the operators justify its use just as entertainment. Point. The fact that this festival houses so many stalls with people making so many outrageous claims regarding health, I have been told everything from this or that product can cure cancer to a device that turns tap water into sunblock, and the event has not yet been raided by the authorities, continues to amaze me. Point. Skeptical questions are not welcome. Any hint of genuine criticism is met with confusion, surprise, annoyance, or anger. One of the notable stalls we discovered this time around was from the Coastal Clarity Quantum Living, who were selling a device or app, the AO Scan. As told to us by the representative, after asking us if we knew about Nikola Tesla and Royal Raymond Rife, the system works as follows. It all works on frequencies. You record your voice for 10 seconds, the device analyzes the voice and picks up on the 4 notes that are most out of balance, and then converts this into 4 MP3 files. You listen to these via headphones, and this will bring you back into balance. Yep, and we've heard the same sort of hogwash at Mind, Body, Spirit again and again and again. What was also apparent and typical of those fronting this type of stall over the years is that the representatives usually know next to nothing about the device beyond the sales pitch from the brochure. They have a poor grasp on the meaning of the words they use, frequency being the prime example, and have no real understanding of the science, which is hardly surprising, as most of these devices simply cannot work as claimed. And one more observation, or maybe a prediction. Mind, Body, Spirit will be back in 6 months. The same dodgy health claims and products will be on display. Thousands will roll up and part with the money, and the authorities will continue to turn a blind third eye. For more reports on this event, head to our website and search for Mind, Body, Spirit or Mind, Body, Wallet. Audio reports can also be found in the archives of the Skeptic Zone podcast. And that was 20 Years of Predictable Surprises by Richard Saunders, and you can read that for yourself when you subscribe to the Skeptic magazine at skeptics.com.au, and that story appeared in volume number 42, number 2, from June 2022.
Hello, this is Maynard. Did you know that you can listen to the Skeptic Zone on YouTube? Yes, I know, sounds crazy, but it's true. Also, you can hear 40 logical fallacies with Michelle Bickersma and funny sketches with Richard Saunders and a host of other skeptics. Just click on the YouTube links on the homepage at skepticzone.tv.
And now, a reading from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham.
Hi, my name's Tim Mendham and I'm Executive Officer of Australian Skeptics and Editor of our magazine, The Skeptic. And I will be reading today from the pages of that magazine from an issue not that long ago, September 2020. And this is an article called The Little People, which I wrote myself. This is part of a feature we had on sovereign citizens and people sort of generally complaining about government and that sort of stuff. And this was about micronations, the people who have expressed their disenchantment with governments by building their own. Some people might object to government regulations and take to the streets to protest that the rules are not relevant to them. Others take a more drastic action, packing their metaphorical bags and setting up their own countries. The world is actually dotted with little countries, in quotes, that have seceded from their former parent nation. Most of these are basically jokes. An apartment in King's Cross, Sydney, or a caravan in Norfolk in the UK, which is possibly the only mobile nation in existence. Others are whimsical, wishful thinking which governments tolerate as amusing but not very serious diversions. Most of them develop a monarchy, a constitution with stamps, passports and visas to match. Some welcome tourists, though in the case of the caravan in Norfolk, you do need to book ahead to make sure there are plenty of cucumber sandwiches on hand. Most don't last very long. Once the reigning monarch gets bored or too old to bother, they fade quietly into the list of vanished kingdoms. But there are some who take it very seriously, with a long-standing animosity to the nation they secede from. These have involved legal battles with taxation officers, internal disputes and takeovers, and, in one case, an invasion by mercenaries and a threat from the Royal Navy. Let's start with the first one. And the motto of this place is, "From the sea, freedom." And this is Sealand, which lays claim to a platform built in the North Sea during the Second World War as an anti-aircraft facility. There were several built, looking like minimal oil-dwelling platforms, but for some reason they were built in international waters, just the place for an illegal pirate radio station in the 1960s. As Sealand says, these nations chose their remote locations, whether on ships or platforms, as, quote, an attempt to bypass the draconian broadcasting restrictions of the time, which permitted little more than formal broadcasting by the BBC. The pirate stations were much loved by the British public as they supplied everything that the BBC did not at the time, pop music and amusing presenters. They're the start of the DJs you hear now, but in the BBC in those days was pretty formal and pretty stuffy. According to the Lonely Planet Guide to Micronations, at 450 square metres, or 0.1 of an acre, Sealand is the smallest country in the world, albeit not a recognised one. In comparison, the Vatican City, which is recognised, is huge at 121 acres. Two pirate radio station proprietors, Paddy Roy Bates and Ronan O'Reilly, landed on Ruff's Tower gun platform in 1966 to set up a new station. Differences emerged, however, and Bates seized the tower as his own. As Lonely Planet describes it, O'Reilly, supported by a small group of men, attempted to storm the base in mid-1967. Bates and his crew were ready. They repelled the attack with guns, petrol bombs, and according to some experts, a flamethrower. The Royal Navy got wind of it and ordered Bates to surrender possession. He refused, and on September the 2nd, 1967, he declared independence. The Navy returned later and destroyed the other unoccupied towers, making a threat as they passed Sealand of "You're next." It's still there, despite a later attempted coup by Dutch and German mercenaries, an offer from Argentina to buy it during the Falklands War, and the UK extending its territorial waters to 12 kilometres, thus including Sealand. And of course, Sealand responded by extending its territorial waters to match, meant that included the UK. Bates died in 2012, and his son Michael is now Prince of Sealand, though he lives on the mainland and runs a fishing business. There is an attractive website, sealand.gov.org, and you can buy various royal titles or a knighthood from the online shop. And the second country we're going to look at has the motto, "While I breathe, I hope." And that's the motto of what we used to be called the Hutt River Province. On a slightly less dramatic note, but no less serious than Sealand, probably more so in fact, is Hutt River Province, a former agricultural property approximately 600 kilometres northeast of Perth, Western Australia, which makes it pretty isolated. At 75 square kilometres, it makes Sealand look small. The Principality of Hutt River, or PHR as it is known to its citizens after a name change in 2006, was founded by Leonard Casley on April 21, 1970, declaring himself Prince with his wife Princess Shirley. Casley, who had, quote, carved his way in the world of business, farming, family and fighting for his king and country, took objection to a government wheat quota. The slightly quaint website, principality-hutt-river.com, says that Prince Leonard, with his pen, incredible mind and loving companion Princess Shirley and her typewriter, set out 50 years ago to right a wrong, the wrong of a government stealing a person's human rights, a government that should be there to protect and encourage the development and growth of individuals, which then, when added together, becomes a mighty nation. Continuing the quote, he saw the unjust position governments were placing people in, and he fought against that, certainly out of necessity to save his family's farm, but it was bigger than the Casley family. It was a human right that needed to be saved. Surely natural justice is what keeps us all at peace. That's the end of the quote. Justice prevailed despite state and federal government objections, rejecting the sovereign nature of PHR, insisting on tax and GST payments in an ongoing legal battle. The Principality's capital of Nain has tourist facilities, which are a caravan and a camping ground, a postal service, a giant bust of the Prince, a stone of light monument, the Princess Shirley's sacred educational shrine, unfortunately Shirley died in 2013, the gateway to nature's spirit world, where you can see and read about the findings of HRH Prince Leonard and other academics of the PHR Royal College of Advanced Education, and to the discovery of mathematical formulas which uncover nature's basic construction code, SC 10989, and many others, which was a mouthful. It even has the Royal Hutt River Navy. Now, those of you who know Australia know that 600-odd kilometres northeast of Perth is not exactly a marine hub. But anyway, the Royal Navy, which is non-combative and is represented by, quote, members located on several continents and geographical areas, including Australia, Europe, North America and Asia. In other words, it's a virtual navy. In January 2017, after ruling for 47 years, Prince Leonard abdicated in favour of his youngest son, Prince Graham. That same year, the Supreme Court of Western Australia, obviously not recognising a real sovereign when it saw one, ordered Prince Leonard to pay $2.7 million in unpaid tax. Leonard died last year, which will be in 2019. The province has held a place of warmth and amusement for many Australian people, even if most don't know where it is. So it comes as a sad blow to hear that it has recently closed, or gone into hiatus, as the website says. Prince Graham reports that, quote, over the past few years, the economic standing of the Principality has been challenging. We have and are experiencing declining revenue from our agricultural pursuits, our largest source of revenue. This finds us in difficult and challenging circumstances. This, along with a steady decline in the number of tourists passing by and dropping in for a chat over more recent times, as well, of course, the increasing costs of running even such a small country as the PHR, has led me to the difficult current announcement that the Principality of Hutt River is to go on hiatus, closing its borders and public offices at the end of business on Friday, the 31st of January, 2020. Lonely Planet's Guide to Micronations says that some are theoretical experiments in statehood, examples of how nations should or could be organised. Others are played mostly for laughs, enormous, time-consuming, intricate jokes usually made at the creator's own expense. Some of the more enduring nations are formed out of anger or discontent, frustration or desperation. Of these, there might even be a few sinister nations with unsound agendas. Many of the current crop of self-professed sovereign citizens obviously have anger, some are desperate, and some may even have sinister intent. They also have ignorance and a sense of self-importance. PHR was not sinister, though it was born out of anger and discontent. At 50 years old, it was one of the oldest micronations in the world, certainly of those with actual land and a navy. So its passing is surely one of the saddest and least heralded closings of a nation in global history. Now that's the article called Little People, which appeared in the Skeptic magazine September 2020. And you can download that issue of the magazine for free from our website, which is www.skeptics.com.au. Or maybe you should subscribe to the magazine. It helps us. It'll certainly help you get the latest information on skeptics in Australia and elsewhere.
I'm Mick West. In my podcast, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, I have extended conversations with people who have been involved in conspiracy culture. I do this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's really interesting. These people have great stories about how they fell down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, what they did down there, and what it was that helped them out. Sometimes I also talk to people who investigate conspiracy theories, and they have equally fascinating stories from the other side. Secondly, I want to understand how best to prevent the spread of conspiracy theories and misinformation, which is an increasing problem in a time when alternative media is exploding. The best way to do this is to communicate effectively with the people involved, and the best way to do that is with a nice long chat. So check it out, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, tftrh.com.
Once again to dive into those pages at Trove, at trove.nla.gov.au, the online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia, full of digitised newspapers reports going back decades and centuries. This week inspired by a suggestion by my friend Lindley, Posty Lindley in Melbourne, a listener to the show, we're going to be looking at the Min Min lights. What are the Min Min lights? What are the Min Min lights? These are mysterious floating lights that appear in a remote part of northern Queensland. And to quote from Skeptoid by Brian Dunning, who did an episode on the Min Min lights called Chasing the Min Min light, and this was Skeptoid episode number 133, from December 2008. It's a hot night out here in the Australian outback. We're about 40 miles east of the tiny village of Boulia, near the site of an old ghost town called Min Min that doesn't even exist anymore. They call this part of Western Queensland the Channel Country, a flat expanse of floodplains and creeks and dry washes that almost never flow. Stand on a high point and you can see the horizon in every direction. And if you're lucky, on a night like this, you might see the region's most infamous denizen, the Min Min light. And the episode goes on. The conclusion Brian has come to is that the Min Min light are a form of mirage. In fact, towards the end of the episode, he says, optical science has produced a far better candidate for our mysterious ghost light, one that is reproducible and fully accounts for the observations. Professor Jack Pettigrew, writing in the journal Clinical and Experimental Optometry, described the Min Min light and the Fatamogana. The Fatamogana Mirage is a type of superior mirage. In a superior mirage, the object is seen above its actual position, for example, above the horizon, when in fact it is far away and hidden below the horizon. Fatamogana mirages are caused by the thermal inversion layers in the atmosphere. They are fairly common in the Arctic regions where temperature inversions are endemic. He goes on to say that Pettigrew found that Australia's Channel Country naturally creates ideal conditions for superior mirages. All of the hollows and ravines trap warm air, and on a cool evening following a hot day, the conditions are virtually certain to take place. So there's the conclusion that Brian has come to in his Skeptoid episode, which seems reasonable enough. But let's now go back into history and see what reports we can discover about the Min Min lights. And we have a result here from the Northwestern Courier, dated the 14th of June 1943. The Min Min light. In a recent Austral Oddities session over Radio 2 FC, Bill Beatty spoke of the Min Min light, that strange, mysterious light that may be seen at Min Min on the road between Boulia and Winton, Western Queensland. Bill Beatty's mention of this phenomena reminded me of my meeting with it years ago, a meeting which I shall long remember. In 1929, I was coming in with 1,500 bullocks from Burnett Downs in the Northern Territory. Passing the small township of Boulia, we headed southwest for Winton, almost 200 miles distant. Travelling along at a rate of 10 miles a day, we camped one night on Min Min Station, quite close to the main Boulia-Winton road, on level, well-grassed, lightly timbered country, the bullocks being put on camp about 200 yards from the road. I was taking the midnight watch, and at 11:30 p.m. the man on watch rode into camp and awakened me, then got back on his horse and rode out again to the cattle. Sitting up on my boots and spurs, the only articles which your dinkum cattle drover ever removes, I stirred the fire, put the coffee billy on the coals to warm up for the man I was relieving, mounted the night horse tied at the camp, and rode out to do my 2 hours watch. Joining the man who was riding around the cattle, singing at the top of his voice, I asked the usual question. "How are they camping, George?" "Oh, quite well," he said. "No trouble at all." We rode around the cattle together, and then my mate said, "Well, I'll go in now and get some shut-eye." He was about to ride back to camp when we noticed a bright light shining along the road in the direction of Boulia. "I'll stay here with you until that car gets past," said George, "just in case it frightens the bullocks." We rode around together, yarning, while the light on the apparently approaching car shone brightly at a distance of about 1.5 to 2 miles, though it seemed to be coming closer. Suddenly, without warning, the light vanished, and we concluded that the motorist had decided to camp for the rest of the night, so George went in for his shut-eye. Left on my own, I started my 2 hours watch with no thought for the motorist, who had decided to camp on the edge of the road. Imagine my amazement when presently I espied the self-same bright light shining along the road in the direction of Winton. I was not scared, but I was certainly very puzzled. There it was, in a totally opposite direction to that in which I had first seen it, to my mind about 1.5 miles away, glowing brightly at about the height of a car's headlights, almost as bright as a car light, but with a slightly reddish glow. I had plenty of time to observe this strange, unaccountable light, as it remained there for over an hour without a movement or even a flicker. To say the least, it was an eerie experience. Imagine, if you can, an open, treeless plain with a wintry June wind sweeping across it, with no sound but of one's own voice warbling lullabies, with a curlew, and a curlew is a bird, with a curlew accompaniment to 1,500 drowsy bullocks, and the grunts, coughs, wheezes, and other indefinable noises of a large mob of camping cattle, with all the time your eyes turned to a mysterious light in the distance. Just before I went to wake my successor, who was to take the next watch, the light disappeared, just as though someone had switched off an electric light. At breakfast next morning, I started to tell my story of the strange light, and up spoke one of the drovers who had spent most of his life in those parts.
"Ah, that was the Min light. I forgot to tell you chaps last night that you might see it here."
Then he told us about it, how it had been seen in that particular locality for as long as white men could remember, how men had tried to run it down on horseback, and how suddenly it had gone out, to reappear behind them as elusive as ever. He told us that famous scientists had gone out to unravel the mystery and had returned knowing no more than when they went there. That was in 1929, and now, by all accounts, the Min light is still glowing, eerie and elusive, yet always in the same locality, one of nature's unsolved mysteries. What a wonderful report, what a wonderful report made in 1943 about an adventure in 1929. And here we have another return from the Sunday Mail in Brisbane, dated the 9th of March 1941. Spiritualists' Theory on Min light. Beachcomber's series of articles in the Sunday Mail magazine on ghosts of Queensland has captured the interest of Mr. A. J. Ford of Taringa, Brisbane, spiritualist.
"It is my contention,"
writes Mr. Ford,
"that the Min light described in last week's issue of the Sunday Mail is purely a spirit light brought by some earthbound disembodied spirit that is very anxious to give some valuable information about the spot where it manifests itself, the vicinity of the notorious shanty town known as the Min Hotel, where murders and other crimes are spoken of as having possibly taken place."
Mr. Ford quotes a report that Reverend Bernard Roden, formerly of London, a psychic demonstrator and trance lecturer, is shortly to tour Australia, and states that he has written south, putting the Min reports as quoted by Beachcomber forward as worthy of his investigation. The Sunday Mail article stated that the light had been in evidence for more than 60 years and had never been satisfactorily explained. Mr. Ford suggests that a psychic would be able to supply the name of one who is causing the light and interpret the message or information which the earthbound spirit wishes to convey and enable it to advance from its present environment. The light would then cease to appear. Sort of reminds me of that old saying, when you're a hammer, every problem's a nail. When you're a spiritualist, every phenomenon must be a spirit. And finally, we come to Queensland Country Life. And this was published on the 10th of December, 1953. Mystery of the Min light. by T.J. Pennington. For more than half a century, people of the Boulia district have been intrigued and mystified by that strange phenomenon, the mysterious Min Min light. It has become the legend of stations from Warrender to Mukunda Downs and has sent cold shivers down many a man's spine, besides stampeding travelling mobs of cattle. It derives its name from the fact that it first made its appearance in the vicinity of the Min Min pub. Like a huge ball of fire which lights up the plains for miles, it races across the downs at speeds of 30 to 40 miles an hour. Despite all explanations as to its origin, no satisfactory conclusions have been reached as to its appearance and disappearance. Some hold the opinion it is a kind of night bird or phosphorus that travels at certain periods, as it is not seen for months. Then suddenly it appears in all its glory. I have seen it on 2 occasions. First at Lucknow Station, at a set of yards 5 miles south of the station where I delivered a mob of sheep that day. It has the power to change direction, as on the second occasion. I was watching a mob of cattle at Mukunda Boar, and about midnight it appeared racing straight for the bullocks. I was expecting the worst, as the cattle were on their feet and slowly ringing, bellowing in their nervous state, when suddenly it veered to the south. The bullocks were restless for a couple of hours, then settled down to a peaceful night's rest. Men have chased it on foot, horseback, and car. One unfortunate chap crashed into a fence, his horse falling and breaking its leg. In his time, he was reputed to have chased it quite a few times on horseback, and though he would reassure timid people as to its harmlessness, he regarded it with suspicion and caution, as often, when he thought he was closing on it, it would suddenly appear behind him. A well-known carrier of the horse team days camped a couple of miles from the Middleton pub and, leaving his son in charge of the wagons, walked up to the pub. On arriving back at midnight, the boy was missing. Dad began to shout his name when a nervous voice from under a tarpaulin said,
"Here I am, Dad." "What's the matter, son?"
he asked.
"I've seen the light, Dad. It raced over the wagons. Bluey's gone too. Broke his chain and went bush."
The Min Min light was an interesting mystery then, and remains so to this day. And there we go, some classic old stories from the outback of Australia concerning the mysterious Min Min light. I imagine it would be a very interesting experience to see the lights, although I think they're quite random in nature, so maybe you're not assured of seeing them. So you could go to the area and camp for a week and maybe not see them. Interesting. So many angles and diversions and sidetracks. When you're looking at Trove, one thing can lead to another. Interesting stories from the past. But you can discover that for yourself by visiting Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, because you'll never know what Min Min light you might find.
Min Min Man. The sky was velvet black with diamond stars in the night, and the sparkled starlight fell like a gentle rain of light, besprinkling the earth in a shimmering silver cloak, falling on the campsite and bedazzling the city folk. Dry desert air dyed the campfire in glowing embers, and the storyteller told a tale which only he remembers, of a night he saw the Min Min light deep within the dark, on a distant desert claypan in an earthscape cold and stark. Smiling twinkle lights laughing in the cool crisp air, and moving like men when he knew none were there, just blinking in the distance, moving closer as he stared. But he didn't move a muscle and was quite unprepared. The Min took on human form and entered his domain. He thought his mind was playing tricks deep inside his brain, and he rubbed his eyes and tried in vain to clear his mind. But Min were around him, and his fear was left behind. They took him starlight strolling across their astral plane, and showed him Min secrets of secret Min pain, unknown trials of tribal nations for thousands of years. And then the storyteller stopped and had to dry his tears. Memories of the light and the night he learnt their tale came back to flood emotion as his notion would prevail when he told this lost tale from a long time in history, and he filled all the city folk with question and mystery. Then the merest mist appeared at the city campus site. Would this be a sacred visit from the gods Min light? And the storyteller slowly stood and pointed, for he knew the Min men were coming as the light came into view. Like the softer stars on horseback riding across the flat, they were getting ever closer to where the campers sat, and the city slickers paled, blood drained from their faces as the Min lights arrived and absorbed all their traces. All the city people vanished, but not the Min man. He was left to tell the Min tale the best way that he can, by taking city visitors to those outback points he knows, to turn them into Min lights for future Min shows.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. On next week's show, I might be able to bring you a short catch-up with our dear friend Dr. Angie Matke. Oh yes, the emergency physician and skeptic, and she's one of the organisers every year, of course, of the Skep Track at DragonCon. Dr. Angie is in town. I think she flew in just this morning, and I hope to catch up with her tonight. Always a delight and a thrill to meet up with Dr. Angie. Also on next week's show, the Trove segment looks at the Bermuda Triangle. Is it so mysterious? We'll find out next week. Thank you to those people who continue to support the show at skepticzone.tv via your micropayments, Patreon or PayPal. It all helps to keep the show online and in your ears. And a big welcome to those people who have recently logged on to show your support by becoming new Patreons or new PayPal members. Thank you very much. But for this week, I'm off to rest my voice. For this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. So we break now the Book of Tim. This is very exciting. We have the first plane come over.
The first of many.
The first of many, and we're expecting lots more. And where are the birds, Tim?
Well, the birds, I've actually arranged them for about 15 minutes from now. I booked them, but I did book the entire fleet of Qantas to fly overhead, okay, at 30-second intervals.
And light aircraft.
Like heavy aircraft.
And cockatoos and parrots.
And the tuba band is coming in very soon.
All right.